Hello, anybody who's watching this, welcome to my reaction to Can You Fix Climate Change? By channel, I don't know how to pronounce. Kurzgesagt? Kurzgesagt, in a nutshell, sure. I don't know, I don't think I've ever seen video of this channel. I don't think I've ever seen this channel pop up in my recommended or anywhere else before this video. At least sounds unfamiliar, but anyway. But this video popped up multiple times, and I'm looking for new channels that I can react to, so let's take a look at what it has to offer. Also, climate change is an interesting topic, and I wonder if it's possible to fix, if we just stop whatever destroying the climate, or not whatever, just everything that destroys it. Will it fix itself? Will it remain as is and not gonna get worse? I don't know. And this might be more personal. Can you fix you specifically? So we will see. I don't know how long I'm gonna guess. Before we begin, there's the donation link in the description below if you want to help out the channel. You can also just do whatever you want, like, dislike, comment, subscribe. That everything helps the channel out. And yeah, I didn't plug my headphones. Also, it looks very...
Never before in human history have we been richer, more advanced, or powerful.
Oh, yeah,
and yet we feel overwhelmed in the face of rapid climate change. It seems simple on the surface. Greenhouse gases trap energy from the sun.
I think we feel more helpless when it comes to nature. Like, we can't stop hurricanes or earth tremors, earthquakes. That's the proper name for the thing. So climate change is just another, probably more man-made than hurricanes, tornadoes, and like earthquakes and stuff. But still, it's part of nature.
And transfer it to our atmosphere. This leads to warmer winters, harsher summers. Dry places become drier and wet places wetter. Countless ecosystems will die while the rising oceans swallow coasts and the cities we build on them. So why don't we just, prevent all of that? Well, it's complicated. The public debate about stopping rapid climate change often focuses on a few key features like coal plants, cars, or burping cows. And so the solutions are often simplistic. Rows of solar panels, biking to work, something sustainability. And a huge talking point is personal responsibility. How you should change your lifestyle to prevent rapid climate change, which we'll find out together in the next few minutes.
This is
one of those videos where we want to encourage you to watch to the end, because to discuss real, doable solutions, we first need to understand the problem.
Okay. Volcano, the old gods, okay.
A fuller picture. Modern industrial society, as we constructed it in the last 150 years, is inherently destructive to the planet. Basically, everything we do to make our lives easier, safer, and more comfortable is making things worse for the biosphere. The food we eat, the streets we walk on, the clothes we wear, the gadgets we use, the way we move around, and the pleasant temperatures we artificially create around us. While most people know about the serious impact of energy, beef, cars, and planes, many major polluters are barely ever talked about. The emissions leaking out of landfills are as significant as the emissions of all the jets in the air. More CO2 is released to run our homes than from all cars combined. And the emissions produced when making a new car is equivalent to building just 2 meters of road. So it is nice to switch to electric cars, but they won't solve anything if we keep building roads the same way. Fixing one small part of the industrial system is not enough. Each of the many different parts needs its own solution, and many of them aren't straightforward. But even where we know what to do, just because a solution exists doesn't mean we're able or willing to implement it. There are many grey areas in the fight against rapid climate change. The most prominent one is the divide between rich and poor. Emissions versus poverty. There is a clear connection between the prosperity of a nation and its carbon emissions. In other words, richer people tend to cause more emissions. So the key to fixing climate change is simply for the world's richest to cut back on their extravagant lifestyles, right?
I never
While
understand
this
that.
would help, it wouldn't make the problem go away.
Well, that's obvious.
This is because
but yeah.
63% of global emissions come from low to middle income countries. Countries where most people are not living extravagantly, but are trying to escape poverty at worst and achieve a comfortable lifestyle at best. The unfortunate reality is that currently, escaping poverty and becoming middle class creates unavoidable emissions. So asking developing countries to cut emissions just looks like an attempt to keep them down. It's very hard to argue that a region should protect their primeval forests and spend money on solar panels instead of burning wood when it can't meet basic needs for significant parts of its population. But cutting back is not a popular demand, especially if the countries making these demands got rich by causing environmental damage in the past.
Yeah, it seems hypocritical.
So for billions of people, more emissions are a good thing, personally. When we forget about this, we tend to propose unworkable solutions. Take concrete. 8% of CO2 emissions are released by the concrete manufacturing industry. Okay, cool. Stop using concrete, right? But right now, concrete is also a cheap and easy way for growing populations in developing countries to build affordable housing. And there are many examples like that. Even rich countries aren't immune from disagreeing about rapid climate change solutions. Banning coal, gas and oil from the energy mix is slowed down by heated discussions about what should replace them. Citizens can be strictly against nuclear power, but also oppose wind or solar infrastructure in their backyards. In principle, all of these issues can be overcome, but there are things we don't currently know how to overcome. The most problematic one is food. Emit or die. We will soon need to feed 10 billion people, and we don't know how to do that without emitting greenhouse gases. Because of the nature of modern food production that requires fertilizers or manure, it's impossible to have zero emissions food. Rice alone emits so much methane each year that it practically equals the emissions of all the air traffic in the world. What's worse is that the foods we like the most emit the most. 57% of food emissions come from animal-based foods, although they make up only 18% of the world's calories and 37% of its protein. And as people across the world grow richer, they want more meat. Traditional diets in most cultures were primarily plant-based with a little meat on top. But with the rise of industrial-style meat production and factory farming, meat has become a staple food, a regular indulgence in developed countries and a symbol of status and wealth in developing countries. Today, about 40% of the world's habitable land is used for meat production in some form or another, the size of North and South America combined. This is land we could otherwise allow native ecosystems to regrow, like forests in the Amazon, and suck carbon out of the atmosphere, but instead, most of it is used to feed animals. The available solutions are uniquely able to make everybody on the political spectrum, rich or poor, unhappy. Meat is highly emotional, and there are a lot of whataboutism arguments floating around, like comparing it to the worst sources of emissions. In the end, it's pretty simple. Eating less meat alone won't stop climate change, but we also can't stop climate change without eating less meat. The same holds true for other things that are less crucial to our survival, but frankly not realistic to make go away, like air travel, overseas shipping, mining, and the production of devices that play YouTube videos. So what does this mean? Do we need to give up our way of life, and can the poor never achieve it? Can't some technology save us so we can continue to drive our big cars and eat meat every day? Solutions versus expenses. In principle, this technology already exists. Direct air capture of CO2 draws carbon dioxide from the air so that it can be stored underground or transformed into products. So why aren't we implementing it in every industry everywhere? Because with the technology we have right now, this would cost some $10 trillion per year, or half the United States GDP. This money has to come from somewhere, and currently no one is offering it. Just dumping these costs on massive polluters.
Technically speaking, nobody has 10 trillion, but
like steel mills and coal power stations would double the cost of their products, and so these industries that operate on very tight profit margins would go bankrupt. Getting the government to pay for it seems logical, but a lot of state resources are actually tied up doing the opposite, like subsidizing oil and gas, which seems counterintuitive but follows clear incentives. By artificially keeping fuel prices low, shipping and everyday goods are kept artificially cheap too, which has a major social impact on billions of people around the world.
yeah.
That creates political lobbies and incentives that perpetuate a cycle that makes it so hard to stop fossil fuel production. Meanwhile, very costly solutions for a far-off problem, like carbon capture, seem like they can wait, as technically nobody benefits from it right now. Some argue that a move away from capitalism is the only solution to this mess. Others insist that markets should be even freer without any interventions like subsidies, and some suggest that we need what's referred to as degrowth and to cut back as a species overall. But the truth is, at least as of now, no political system is doing an impressive job at becoming truly sustainable, and none have really done so in the past. We also don't have the time to figure this out and do a lot of experiments. We must implement solutions now, not just to halt the release of all possible greenhouse gases, but also to start reducing the amount of CO2 in the air. It's too late to just mend our ways, we have to actively correct our past mistakes. With every year we waste, more extreme changes will be unavoidable. Okay, let's take a deep breath. Rapid climate change and the world we live in are complicated, so here is where you, dear viewer, come in again.
Okay.
Could you please fix the climate? A narrative of our time is that we are all responsible for rapid climate change, that everyone needs to play their part. Why don't you buy a new electric car? Why don't you replace your gas stove with an electric one? How about you double glaze your windows, stop eating meat, and switch off your lights?
Everything comes to money.
Shifting responsibility from the largest carbon emitters to the average person, you,
To money and convenience.
is much easier to do than solving problems. There's an extra bonus if solving rapid climate change sells a new product. If you don't have the money or time for these things, you should feel bad. It's an effective message because it's true. The quickest way to cut CO2 emissions would be if all rich populations on Earth drastically changed their lifestyles and if the people on the rise would not seek to achieve it, favoring the climate over comfort and wealth. If you're able to watch this video, that includes you. But we've just witnessed a global experiment in staying at home, not using transport, and consuming less during the coronavirus pandemic. And all it did was reduce CO2 emissions by 7% for 2020. Asking average people to solve rapid climate change breaks down when we look at the scale of the problem. Personal contributions towards reducing greenhouse gas emissions are nice, but they are dwarfed by the systemic reality of global emissions. The concept of your personal carbon footprint was popularized by the oil producer BP in a 2005 ad campaign. Arguably one of the most effective and sinister pieces of propaganda that still seriously distracts all of us from the reality of the situation. If you eliminated 100% of your emissions for the rest of your life, you would save 1 second's worth of emissions from the global energy sector. Even the most motivated person can't even make a tiny dent. When we put together the dangers of rapid climate change, the scale of emissions and the lack of consensus over how to solve it, the challenge seems insurmountable. It can cause decision fatigue and moral licensing where you no longer feel bad about behaving in a counterproductive way. We have struggled a long time with this, which is why this video took us so long to make. So, what can you actually do? There are many different takes, and they are passionately discussed. We don't know who's right, so we can only offer you the Kurzgesagt perspective and opinion. Opinion part. What can you actually do? We need a different way to think and talk about rapid climate change. An all-encompassing systemic approach, nothing less than changing the fundamentals of our modern industrial societies. As discussed in frustrating length, the personal responsibility angle is overplayed. For systemic changes in technology, politics, and the economy of this magnitude, we need to influence the people at the levers.
Yeah.
Politicians need to know.
That's the thing, and you can't do that while doing something. Not in my fucking country. My country's not gonna do that. It was even put as a medium to low earnings. I forgot what it was exactly. Russia means nothing. There aren't even that many people for the size of it. Especially people that matter, that will never fucking go away because they falsify every fucking vote that is possible, every fucking election that is possible, because the elections just passed and it's immediately obvious that it was falsified. Falsified? Falsified? You know what I mean. It's pretty much a meme, right? For if you are watching from other countries, like, oh, the president doesn't change. It's so fucking hilarious. But it's more depressing from the inside perspective when nothing you do matters and when you have to convince higher ups, government, well, if including regional stuff, then all the governments, to change something. As a normal person, you won't be able to. Unless they see some kind of value out of it, they won't. Living in Russia is a bad existence. Do not come here, do not give money for tourism, and maybe something will die out and will work as a domino effect. I don't know.
And feel strongly that the people care.
Sorry
Their
about
own
that.
success depends on tackling rapid climate change. When governments and local politicians are reluctant to change laws that affect their biggest tax contributors or campaign donors, we need to vote them out and vote in people who respect science.
I think I clicked on accident. We cannot. We literally fucking can't. It sounds good on paper, but here we are. What did I want to say? Oh yeah, the tax change. Taxes aren't too big in Russia, but they are everywhere. And they started taxing, or will start taxing soon, people who use solar panels. Because they use government electricity. Something. They use something that they don't that solar panel users actually do not use, but they will tax you for using it anyway. Because fuck you. Get fucked.
We need to hold them
I'm getting too passionate lately about politics.
accountable for implementing the most effective climate
I want
change
to go back to
strategies.
the days I didn't give a
Not
shit.
waste our time with things like banning plastic straws, but by moving the big levers. Food, transportation and energy, while not forgetting the smaller ones like cement or construction. When industries fight against changing their ways for fear of losses or in an honest attempt to protect their own, we need politicians to change the laws and incentivize the deployment of existing technologies and massively invest in innovation for the fields where we don't have great solutions yet.
That's the thing. When it comes to science and innovations, it's a bit unpredictable. So you'll start using those CO2 suckers, whatever they called, whatever they actually called. But in a couple years, before they even fully implemented everywhere you wanted, something else might come in. Maybe somehow their power will be increased, and you'll have to remake them if you want better results. So that's a problem. You cannot also kind of bank on the future, then hope in 5 years and 10 years some kind of grand solution will come, because it is possible. And I feel like with every year it's more, the chance is small right now when you think about it, but maybe with every year the more people will come to that field of fixing the climate change, the chance will grow, probably in geometrical progression to people working there, obviously. I don't know. That's how I see it.
There's no reason that the profit interests of industries could not match the need to reduce carbon emissions as much as possible. And if they still don't cooperate, harsh punishments and regulation need to force or bankrupt them.
Like, let's say, how the company will see it. At least some companies definitely will see it this way. They earn a certain amount of money a year the way they do it, which is bad for the climate. You ask them to change it, and they will waste some money, but will keep earning the same amount. What will be? They will look at it, and what's the point? If you're gonna earn this amount, and then after we waste this amount, we'll be earning the same amount as before the change. Why would we need to waste this if we already earned that? Fuck you, people. Get fucked.
It's still unrealistic that change of that scope can be forced onto a worldwide economy quickly enough, because many low-carbon technologies still need a lot of time and research, which means they're expensive. But more companies will make more efficient carbon capture systems, tasty meat alternatives, better batteries, cement alternatives, and so on if there's a clear and growing demand. And if you're affluent enough, you can do your part by investing in these things right now while they're still expensive. These are the mechanisms that will drive the prices down later on. So they...
How's it? What's the saying? Demand creates... Fuck, I can't translate it to English. Shit. But anyway, the more people want a thing, the more things will be on the market. Demand creates deployment. I don't know. I don't remember. What I mean is that yes, things are now expensive, but the more people buy them at this price, the more things would be sold, and the more they will be sold, the less the price will be in the future. However, people aren't buying it now not because they don't want it, it's the price. It always comes down to money. It doesn't matter if you're a rich person or not. I don't know, you want to be buried in a golden diamond encrusted casket or something. I don't know. But there are a lot of people who have way too much money and a lot of people that have way too little. And being on the, also what works here, being on the second spectrum of it, being on the way too little money. It's enough money, like in my family, to live. So it's not like the worst situation. Some people have it way, way worse. But it's enough to live, but nothing else. Like I can't go get myself a car, even used car, and stuff like that. I can't really. It's enough for food, but it's not enough for like some sort of entertainment in life. And I see it as, yes, tax the rich or whatever you want to do. Distribute wealth more evenly across all the classes, low class, middle class, and all that stuff. But people on top, the 1% or whatever they called, will look and say, "Fuck you, peasants! Like I earned this money, I will decide what to do with it." And probably if like, let's say 1% in the US, the government will will do more taxes. And instead of paying more taxes, that 1% possibly will just move to a different country that doesn't have it. Like somewhere in Europe. I don't know. Maybe. Again, I'm looking at a poor man perspective, not a management for the for the rich.
This is basically what you can do. Vote at the ballot, vote with your wallet. There are too many opposing interests.
There was literally a party, the government party called Green, just Green, that was for this, and it got barely any votes. Even if we talk about just legitimate in percentages, just only legitimate, not the fucking other ones. They got barely anything. Because people don't really care. Like, Russia is a bad country not only because of the government itself, but because there are a lot of old people and a lot of people who were brought up in the old ways, let's say. For example, hating gays, maybe even... Actually, I don't know if there's a lot of racism in Russia towards black people. Because there are a lot of people from like Kafkas, or Armenia, or South countries that have darker skin. There are a lot of them. Like, I grew up next to the family from Azerbaijan. One of the kids in that family was a year younger than me. Was one of my best friends. One of my best friends growing up. So I don't think there's a lot of racism in Russia. In that manner, at least. Also, like, to Asians, there are people from Uzbekistan who are like of Asian descent. I don't know how to call them, but you know, they have like similar look to Japanese Chinese. I'm trying not to be a racist while describing person of a different race, because everything can be taken out of context and I can get destroyed for one wrong word. So I think I'm making myself sound more and more and more racist while trying to avoid it. Okay. But you know what I mean. It's like just the face structure and stuff like that from people from Uzbekistan. And I think Kazakhstan as well. At least some. Because a lot of countries of our past uses are intertwined, so there isn't that much racism. But there's a lot of sexism, a lot of homophobia and stuff like that, transphobia and all that stuff. A lot of people are brought up that way, even like, not just in my age group, probably in younger age group. Because why change when you don't have to change? That's pretty much what this video is about, towards climate change.
And complicated grey zones. In the end, if we truly get the systemic change we need, everybody will be unhappy about some aspect of it. Yes. Only if we all accept that some solutions will have negative impacts for us can we have an honest conversation and make progress. Everybody will be a little unhappy, and that's okay.
That Arthur?
This is the best you can do.
The meme?
You can deal with the reality of the situation and promote your priorities through your behavior and your actions. And while you do so, you can eat less meat, fly less, or get an electric car. Not because you should feel guilty if you don't, or because you naively believe that you alone can stop rapid climate change, but to do your tiny, tiny part for the systemic change we need. This video was supported by Gates Notes, the personal blog of Bill Gates, where he writes about global health, climate change, and more. Check out gatesnotes.com to learn more about ways the world can work together to reach zero greenhouse gas emissions, or use the link below.
It just felt a little bit towards kids, maybe, because of the way it's made. I don't know.
Sponsorships like
I don't know if the channel
we also
itself
have
is
a
towards
Medium
kids
article
or
describing
not.
how we
It's
do
quite
it.
serious, but
Thank
it's not
you for
using
watching.
any complicated language and stuff like that. So it's quite educational, but I think more towards a bit younger audience with its bright, with a cartoony style and very bright colors. Because that seemed to work to kids, make kids watch the videos and stuff. But anyway, Russia will be lost to change anything in here, and that's what I'm gonna leave you with. I'm gonna explain how this government works a little bit. The election that was going on, that ended on 19th of September. you were choosing people who will go into Duma, which is like a parliament. Depending on how many votes the government party got, uh, depending on the amount of votes, amount of people will go. But I think, at least what I've read, but I'm not sure if that's 100% correct or not, out of 225 people that supposed to go in there, 208 are from already leading party. And what, 17 people remaining are supposed to be from every other party that there is. And there are, I think, maybe 20. And I do hope that at least you have to get 5% on votes to get somebody in there. But I do hope that Green got at least one person there just as a change. It would mean absolutely fucking nothing because the leading party is bullshit, and I will get fucking. This might be my last video to come out because I will be prosecuted and sued for saying all this. But I hope that I won't be. But we will see. Thank you. Anybody who watched this, I doubled the length of the video because I rambled. But anyway, I appreciate you watching this. I hope to see you next time. Goodbye. Have a great life, because one of us has to.